Well guys, 2022 is coming to a close finally. It's been an eventful year here at Birdburger. It's hard to believe that just at the beginning of this year, we started the channel with the vision of creating a safe community to learn and conversate with one another. As I look back and reflect on my own journey this 2022, I'm definitely most proud of our Birdburger photo competition we hosted back in August and September, and we had an amazing turnout, and that's an understatement. We received over 300 submissions and gave away over $3,500 worth of prizes to contestants, and we were all blessed to see the amazing photographs by so many wildlife photographers. This upcoming year, we will be returning with the 2023 Birdburger Photo Awards, and I'm looking forward to creating more educational content on the channel and interviewing more influential wildlife photographers. Before I continue to get ahead of myself into next year, however, let's take a look back at my best photos of this year. This is purely my own opinion, but I'd love to share with you guys my personal favorites, as well as my vision for them and how I captured them, so that hopefully you can learn a thing or two from it. We'll be ranking them backwards from 10th favorite all the way to my first favorite, so make sure you stick around to see what's best, and let me know in the comments below what your favorites were. Alright, so this first image that we got here is this one I took of a sanderling earlier this year in Morro Bay area, and man, this was an amazing, amazing day. One of the coolest days I've ever had out birding, if possibly maybe the coolest ever. It was so good. And what I really liked about this image, it's relatively simple, but I was laying on the wet sand with just this miles long stretch of sand spit, and it was just really cool. I wanted to kind of find a way to capture this vast expanse and the tininess of the bird. So the temptation, I think, in images like this is always to stay really tight and really close up and just zoom in as much as you can to the sanderling. But what I did here was zoom out a little bit, back out a little bit, and get the wider expanse of what's going on and the beauty around the sanderling of just the wet sand. And I think the other really important key aspect to this image is obviously making sure to stay low. That way I'm able to get the reflection at a very low angle. That way I'm getting the blue and the white of the waves in the background that you can see crashing around there. So overall, I really like the result of this image. It's pretty simple, but I liked how it just told the story of the sanderling foraging for those sand crabs that you see in the image amongst this very open and vast shore scene. So I really like that about this image. My 9th favorite image of the year was this one here of the oyster catcher that I recently got. This was one of the more recent images that I've taken this year. And I really liked this one because I was super inspired after the Birdburger Awards that I told you guys about earlier, that we had earlier on the channel this year. And one of the people who inspired me specifically was actually the winner of the competition, Nathan Watson. He took a lot of silhouette images and probably submitted, I don't remember, but maybe like 3 or 4 silhouette images into the competition. And he has a really good eye for just capturing scenes around the silhouetted subject, because I think it's really easy to just capture a silhouetted subject, but to capture a good scene around it is a little bit more challenging. So what I really went for and kind of tried in this image is how can I capture the feeling and the idea of a wave coming over my subject, these oyster catchers who are just constantly dodging the waves, not dodging the days, dodging the waves of the ocean all day long. And how can I capture that scenery in a silhouette type image? Because the silhouette type image, while yes, the subject is the focus, the wave really becomes a very high priority secondary focus because of the fact that there's really nothing else to concentrate on in this photo. So I really like the result of just this whole scene and wound up being one of my more favorites of the year creatively. My 8th favorite image of this year was probably this one here of a fox sparrow singing at sunrise. This was a male fox sparrow that I had multiple encounters with about 3 times this summer as he was singing over his territory every time I visited that little patch of brush. And so one of those specific times I captured this image right here where it was really nice and isolated on the fox sparrow. And what I really wanted to do was capture those individual little puffs of breath that you're seeing in the image, as well as that chest, because the chest is so impressive how it just kind of bulges in and out as they're singing. And if you watch the video that I have on it on my main channel, the Wildlife Photography Adventure, you can see video clips where that chest is just pumping in and out, and it's so cool. So that was really the idea of wanting to capture this image. And I had gotten shots earlier this year, which you'll see later on in this video, but I got shots earlier of a more bright and very kind of just bright and sun intense type of bird breath images, but this one I wanted to get in a more moody setting, so I had a shaded background of trees behind it, and I like the results. So turned out pretty cool, and I really like the results of this image. My seventh favorite image of the year is this one here of the white-throated swift. Now, this image is pretty basic. It's not necessarily fantastic. I mean, from a technical aspect, it is nearly flawless. Like, we got a perfectly isolated background from the subject. We have this beautiful kind of head side angle that's meeting the 90-degree rule. We have this beautiful wingspan that's being shown off. It's tack sharp and all of that stuff. And the reason why I like this image so much is specifically because of the species. These species, if you haven't tried to capture a swift before, they are probably, at least in my opinion, maybe the hardest birds on the planet to actually capture. Not if you're considering the fact of how difficult they are to find, because they definitely are not difficult to find if you know where to look, but not considering that and considering just, I guess, the idea of just pure skill of photography and mastering your camera and how to get that, these may be some of the hardest birds on the planet to possibly capture. In a dive bomb, some people estimate they can go up to 200 miles per hour in a dive bomb. Some estimate quite a bit lower than that. It's really hard to tell. It hasn't been officially judged yet. In a straight line, they're able to fly at speeds of, I think it's somewhere between 60 and 70 miles per hour. So all that to say, they're tiny birds, incredibly, incredibly hard to capture. So capturing these birds was really tricky. And the reason why I was so proud of this shot when I was able to get it was because my autofocus system on my camera could not keep up with these guys. There was no way I was ever going to be able to capture an in-focus shot of these guys with my autofocus system. Maybe some could. I definitely couldn't. So what I had to do was really master my manual focusing techniques for a scenario like this. And I wound up getting this perfectly tack sharp image, super close up. Everything's perfectly in detail, all manual focus. So I was really proud of this from a technical standpoint, and also just the simple fact that this is a beautiful bird and it looks great. It's a great portrait. I mean, it's not anything super unique, but it is a fantastic portrait. And if you look up white-throated swifts, you'll be very hard-pressed to find a good portrait image like this. So that was one of my reasons for liking this image that much and putting it as number 7 for my year. Number 6 for my year is this image here of an American crow. Now, this was a really cool night and a really cool experience over the course of a month that I had. So I found out essentially that there was a flock of American crows, about 10,000 strong, roosting at my city's local hospital. Ironically, the hospital that I got my jaw surgery at last year, for those of you guys who were around then. But I found that out, and so I kind of started to envision this night of where I could capture a full moon and I could capture crows silhouetted. Now, the trickiest part is that these crows, you know, are they roost high up in the trees or on the building ledges of that multi-story hospital. So getting eye level with them was really going to be the challenge. So I really had to work for an angle in which I could get perfectly eye level with them. And I found a parking garage nearby where some of them roosted on kind of the dead twigs around the parking garage. And so I was able to use one of those in this image to get perfectly eye level with that and the moon. The moon was about maybe 10 degrees high into the sky. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I timed out the altitude of the moon with the trees from the location I was shooting to be able to get this shot. So it required a lot of planning. It actually really took a month of planning, even though I only spent about 2.5 hours that actual night photographing them. Incredible, incredible experience. Couldn't have been more happy with the results from that whole night, but this was one of my favorites in that. I think it really helps to represent the mysterious and eerie mood of that night. And the body silhouette over the moon is just really fantastic there. I love the way it's hunched over, kind of just adds to that eeriness. So my number 5 image for my favorite of 2022 is probably pretty, I don't know, questionable to say the least to a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys might not think much of this image, and I would understand why. It's not a super it's definitely not an eye-grabbing image. Like, when you look at this image, it's definitely not one of the ones that's gonna pop out to you first as you're scrolling through Instagram, or maybe not even in a magazine or nothing like that. But the reason why I liked this image so much is this was from the same bird that we saw before, the white-throated swift. So this was from the same series of weeks that I spent with this bird. And really the coolest behavior about these birds is that they'll fly up and, like I said, they'll dive bomb, and they will dive bomb at incredible speeds. Like, they'll just be way high up in the air, then they'll just plummet down out of the sky at just quicker than you can see it happen. Like, it's insane. And so tracking them in this process is just super thrilling, super exciting. And I was on the top during this adventure. I was on the top of these kind of mountainous hills that were just rolling green hills for miles. So I was on the borderline. I guess to backtrack a little bit, in California, we have a mountain range to my left side, or I guess my west side. We have a mountain range to my east side. I was on the west side's mountain range, and I was on the border of it, so I could see across the whole valley. And all the way across the valley, I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but I would guesstimate it's about 70 miles to the next mountain range over, somewhere around there. And so this mountain range that you're seeing in the distance is actually 70 miles away. It's a huge distance away. And so during that day, I had this overlook of the whole valley and seeing the mountain range far on the other side, those snow-capped mountains. So my goal and my vision kind of with this image was to be able to capture one of these dive bombing swifts way out in the distance from the sky and be able to capture the mountain behind it. That way you can get this really cool sense of perspective of it flying and diving down out of the air and the beautiful scenery that I was seeing miles away, and just really trying to represent that scenery. So, the combination of the behavior being shown, the scenery, kind of the vastness of this scene really appeals to me. And again, this is not something that everyone is going to enjoy, but this was definitely one of my favorites of the year personally. So that's that of this swift dive bombing image. That's number 5 on the list, and let's move to number 4. So number 4 was this one here of a red-winged blackbird. And this was the first time of the year that I had tried to capture bird breath images. So this was a really thrilling and exciting attempt for me to capture these bird breath images. And I learned kind of the conditions required to be able to do this stuff. And I was able to go out and actually be successful on my time doing it. And these red-winged blackbirds are just a perfect subject for this type of stuff, because you kind of just see like they're such vocal birds. Like, they sing all the time, and the males are just beautiful. Their songs are gorgeous and they look gorgeous. And so capturing this perfectly backlit shot was really, really awesome. And I love just kind of the outline, the kind of halo effect that you get on the red-winged blackbird itself. And then just that beautiful stream of breath coming off because of the song that the male is singing. So really, really cool. I love the contrast in this image. And if you guys are looking to personally learn about how kind of the conditions required and how you capture bird breath in your images, I'll link a video in the description below in which you guys can learn that. I've created a super short video on how I capture bird breath in my images. So you can learn from that video if you're looking to do the same yourself. So very cool image. And that's my number 4. Now we're getting to top 3. This is where it's getting real, guys. So this one is kind of simplistic in nature, but is really, really appealing to me. I love just the light and the colors. The blend of light and colors in this image is just stunning. It's absolutely colorful and beautifully saturated. And what I was noticing while I was out this morning, this is the same morning actually as the fox sparrow in the other image that you saw. And what I really, really loved about this image was I was seeing all these beautiful bokeh balls in the background. The sun was peeking through the trees and only hitting certain parts of the trees and not others. So what that was doing was creating these subtle little bokeh ball effects all spotted throughout the background. And then the other parts of the trees would be just that more normal gradient, kind of green and yellow, right? And so what I was noticing was these bokeh balls, and what I did was just move myself enough to be able to line myself up with one of those bokeh balls to create this kind of angelic halo behind the head of the fox sparrow. And so when the fox sparrow turned, I got this shot. It wound up turning out beautiful, and I just love, love, love the results of it. And it really speaks a lot to when you're out in the field. Mobility can be really key. Like, sometimes you need to be in a hide for some of the types of species that you're capturing, but when you can, I always try to recommend doing a more remote type of setup that's a little bit more mobile, because you can do things like this where you can slightly adjust your positioning side to side to get those backgrounds lined up perfectly. And this is a perfect example of that. So again, love the colors, love the light in this image, absolutely phenomenal. This was my 3rd favorite of the year. So for my 2nd favorite of the year, we had this incredible experience. One of my favorites. You guys will see this if you check out the video I'm about to talk to you guys about in a second. But on one of my favorite adventures of the year, I went out to capture birds in a burnt down forest. And wow, what an incredible experience it was. Last year, we had these wildfires that just ravaged a lot of the forest in the mountains nearby my home. And so what I wanted to do was return this year to the same spots that I had in the past, but this time capture just whatever I could find in a burnt down forest. Little did I know, though, that I would find actually a really rare species for my area. The black-backed woodpecker is a really hard to find species. in these burnt down forests. So this was super exciting for me, a super cool opportunity. And as I was just kind of spending 3 days with them and kind of just looking at kind of just this beautiful scene of just this dark and light contrast in the mornings and the sunrises, I wanted to be able to capture that light versus dark kind of contrast and that mood in all of these images. So the burnt forests obviously providing the blackness and kind of the darkness of the scene, but then the beautiful sunrise peeking through the trees providing the light. And what really accents this image and this kind of mood and effect is those beautiful sun rays that are going on behind the baby birds. So this is actually a moment where a father is foraging and feeding its young bird behind it. So the father's on top, the child is on bottom. And in this scene, you have these beautiful sun rays wrapping around the child. And I loved those effects there. And the way that that happened is because the father was pecking all on this tree, there's actually a lot of sawdust. If you look closely, a lot of sawdust flying all around. So those speckles, it's not noise, it's actually sawdust. And what's going on here is those sawdust was giving enough context to that light to where as the light kind of bent around the young black-backed woodpecker, you were able to get just those beautiful little kind of solar flares looking things around the juvenile. So I love the results there. You can even see the little bit of food in the adult's beak. And so I really, really loved this image. What I also made sure to do here to really help isolate it, because that black bark, while it's very cool, the black bark that's in focus is pretty distracting. And so if I would have left too much of it, it would have taken away a lot from the value of the scene and the subjects that's kind of going on there, the activity that's going on there. So what I wanted to do was I moved behind another foreground tree to help give that blur and help keep it still very dark and black and moody, but not in focus and detailed. That way you don't get distracted by that tree bark there. So again, a situation of being mobile and just being able to move a little bit does a lot for your images a lot of times. But overall, just an incredible scene. And I felt like it was one of the coolest representations I had all year of like what meaning in my wildlife photography can look like, kind of the meaning of like life rising out of the ashes, right? So I loved this adventure. I'd highly recommend you go check it out at the end of this video, which I'll link a video up in the end screen, showcasing all of my favorite videos of the year. So I'd highly recommend, you guys go check that out. But for now, let's move into number one. So this was a hard choice for the year. That black-backed woodpecker image almost got number one for me. But for me, number one really comes to this one. And it's much more simple. This is much more standard, much more simple. For a lot of people, this might not be super impressive. It's not necessarily the most unique thing you've ever seen, even though it is better than your average kind of unique standard style portrait. But really the reason why this was my personal favorite of the year is that this bird is a bird that I have wanted to capture for years. For 5 years, I have been on the lookout to capture an image that is beautiful of this bird. And about 3 years ago, I got my first chance to ever do so. Like I captured an image of a vermilion flycatcher, but it was by no means phenomenal. Like I wasn't super excited about it. It wasn't that great. It was cool because I got to see the bird. Like I was super thrilled, but I didn't get the image that I wanted. But at that moment, I started planning out, how can I get kind of this beautiful image of a vermilion flycatcher male with its wings spread wide open? So for the past 3 years, I had been planning kind of how I can do this. And finally, kind of this past winter, I had the opportunity to do so. And through a lot of extensive planning on figuring out which perch this flycatcher is going to be landing on and which ones, I should say, it's going to be landing on, and then choosing the best one with the best aesthetic angle where I really have this isolated background, this beautiful one single perch kind of coming out that it can land on. I loved the results here. So even though, again, it's not like there's anything crazy creative going on here, just the amount of, I guess, planning that went into the shot and kind of envisioning the shot, and it actually turned out exactly like I wanted it to, was really what appealed to me so much. There's a perfect wing spread going on here. I mean, the wing spread is literally ideal. The tail fan is ideal. The body positioning is perfect with even the talons just barely grasping the top of that twig there. And then you have this beautiful subtle color contrast between the vermilion color of the vermilion flycatcher and that kind of tannish background. And it's a nicely isolated image. So I love the results here. Was my favorite image of the year. And was an incredible, very, very like, it's like that moment where just everything just came in. I take a deep breath, I got the shot that I'd been wanting for so long. I just was able to just breathe it out and just enjoy it. Like this is one of the moments of wildlife photography that makes me so excited and so in love with the art. Is just that moment where everything comes together and you get what you want. As the year is coming to a close, I just wanted to say thank you to you all for supporting me and helping me grow this channel. We have a couple more videos coming out this year, and I hope you enjoy your holiday season. If you want to see a video on my favorite wildlife photography adventure films I've created this year, check out this video here in the end screen for the video that just released on my main channel recapping my exciting year. See you guys next time.